Space Adventure Cobra. With a name like that and a scantily clad girl adorning the box, you've probably got a fairly good idea of what to expect already. Based on the popular manga and anime series, the game finds our titular space pirate hero, Cobra, with a massive price on his head. Initially pursued by a bounty hunter, he is forced to team up with her to fight the intergalactic crime lord after them both. Now, on first glance, you might be thinking that the game looks a lot like the mighty Snatcher. It's a menu-driven adventure with simple animated graphics viewed through a box at the top of the screen. Fans of Snatcher will be disappointed, however, as the game has nothing like that level of complexity. The options are generally limited to examining your surroundings, talking to people around you, and occasionally blasting someone with a laser cannon built into Cobra's left arm. Puzzles in the game are less about logic and deduction than they are about repeatedly clicking all the available options until new ones appear or another story sequence is triggered. Unlike Snatcher's fancy shootouts, fights in Space Adventure Cobra are pretty rudimentary, simply a case of choosing the appropriate action for the circumstances, and it's actually quite hard to die for most of the game. Rather than Snatcher, one reviewer actually suggested the better comparison for the game would be Japanese dating sims. And if you understand that analogy, shame on you. Anyway, we'll skip ahead a bit here.
Hands up. The next bullet will be aimed at your head.
I told you, if you hang around a graveyard, you're gonna run into a ghost.
I wish it were a ghost. We'd be in less trouble. These are assassins from the Pirate Guild.
Jane Royal, I've been looking all over for you.
I'm not familiar with that name. Who am I supposed to be?
We both know there's an easy way to prove your identity.
Essentially, the Space Adventure is less a game as such, it's more like an interactive comic book with speech and music.
Look at that tattoo.
Having said all that, one interesting thing about the game you must have noticed by now is that it's in English. Considering the vast number of graphic adventures from Japan that never see the light of day anywhere else, it seems odd that this one should get a release in the West, especially when it's not all that sophisticated. I guess I'd reckon it might have been released to tie in with the US and UK release of the Cobra feature film, but I couldn't be sure. To the best of my knowledge, anyway, Space Adventure Cobra never acquired the same following in the English-speaking world as many other more bankable anime series, which is a shame as it was actually quite good. The plot may sound a bit cliché and the characters are possibly a bit stereotypical, but they all have a surprising amount of charm about them, helped here by some fairly decent voice acting. The animation is a little limited at times, but it's pretty faithful to the original designs and gets the story across quite well. My only real complaint about the presentation is that the music seems to drown out the speech at times, but that may be down to my using gens to run the game here. Hopefully we should be coming up for a fight scene, possibly. And here we go, finally we're getting one of the fights here. Again, the animation suits the style of the game quite well. It's a wee bit basic, but it's okay. It suits the game. We've only got the one option here, just to use the gun. Quite often you'll get to punch or kick people as well. It's all good, gratuitously violent fun. But anyway, getting right down to it, should you buy this game? If you've got a MegaCD and you're looking for something to play on it, get Snatcher. If you've got a Snatcher and you want another good adventure for the machine, try and find Monkey Island. Really, the space adventure isn't going to keep you entertained for terribly long. It's a good looking title with a fun story, but the actual game part of it isn't strong enough to warrant a purchase unless you somehow stumble across a copy inside the £10 bracket. On the other hand, if you're a massive fan of Cobra looking for something to keep you amused until they finally release the TV series in English, you could do a lot worse. The game isn't all that common, but copies can still be found for a reasonable price if you're willing to look. Anyway, in closing, I think the nature of the game makes it impossible to give the Space Adventure a conventional score, which is why I'm giving it Schrodinger's cat out of 10. It's an interesting curiosity, but by no means an essential purchase.
I found him. I knew I was right.